4 weeks. It felt a little bit shorter than I thought, but time is a construct anyway, so who really cares or knows? But the Bears hire Shane Waldron to be their new offensive coordinator, formerly of most recently, I guess I should say, of the Seattle Seahawks for the past 3 years, engineered the season that made Geno Smith a comeback player of the year award winner, and formerly of the Sean McVay tree. Was the passing game coordinator in Los Angeles when Jared Goff was there. I believe the years were 2019 to 2021. And then before that was in New England with Bill Belichick. So has experience play calling, has been around the league, has been in a bunch of different places with a bunch of different quarterbacks, which is juxtaposed with the offensive coordinator that you just had here, Luke Getsy, who was a first-time play caller who had only been with Green Bay and only worked with one quarterback. Shane Waldron's history of quarterbacks includes, but is not limited to, Geno Smith, Jared Goff, Kirk Cousins, and as well as many others, but those are the headliners. And this is a guy who's called plays before. And I think it's a good hire. I'm glad that they did their due diligence of the Bears. I'm glad that they took their time and landed on someone who has a strong history in the league, who's been in the league for a long time, not just as a play caller, but with different staffs, different guys who are highly regarded. So to me, we'll just get right into it. To me, I could be wrong. This indicates the return of Justin Fields. To me, this is what it looks like, because, and for the single reason that of the Geno Smith comeback player of the year season that we just saw in 22. And Geno Smith wasn't even he was close to average this year, and he dealt with injuries and he was kind of in and out. But I think, to me, the Shane Waldron, Geno Smith revival, let's say, of the 2022-2023 season seems to indicate, given where you're at with Justin Fields, seems to indicate, to me at least, again, I could be wrong, they could trade Justin Fields tomorrow. And we can talk a little bit about a mock draft from Mel Kiper that came out today. But to me, it indicates that Justin Fields is sticking around, that they hired this guy because, hey, look what he did with Geno Smith and made Geno Smith a Pro Bowler for the first time in his 9th year in the league. To me, that just indicates that Justin Fields is coming back. Could be wrong, could totally be wrong. But just given what we know, and given Waldron's history, and given where you're at with Justin Fields, it indicates to me that Justin Fields is going to be the quarterback in 2024.
Wow. I wasn't expecting you to come on here first 2 minutes and let that one loose. Dude, that's a take.
Do you disagree?
That is a take. I don't entirely disagree. Look, I had said throughout this hiring process that I thought most of us could tell based on who they hired, who they'd return at quarterback. I thought the hire would dictate it for the most part, right? Because you saw names like Kingsbury. And if you're Kingsbury, it was 100% going to be Caleb. I think all along we were excited about that, but we knew that was an interview for intel, right? You're going to interview Cliff Kingsbury and get everything you can.
It didn't have to exclusively be that.
Right. It didn't have to exclusively be that, but it served that purpose regardless. Now, if they hired Greg Roman, you're almost for sure assuming Justin Fields would be returning because of his track record with quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson and quarterbacks similar to Justin Fields' play style in the NFL and success with those players in the NFL. Shane Waldron is one of those guys who can do both, which is why I'm not definitive on it, right? I don't think, though, he's the best guy for a rookie quarterback like Caleb Williams to come into, right? I just don't think that there's a marriage there that gets you as excited as the marriage that could exist between him and Justin Fields, knowing what he's done with quarterbacks similar, I guess you could say similar to Justin Fields' play style. Geno Smith early in his career held the ball way too long, was one of his biggest criticisms. He was able to fix that, and he has somewhat of a running ability, but obviously nowhere near Justin Fields' running ability.
Russell Wilson, 2021.
Russell Wilson, 2021, is another guy that he's worked with and had success with, who was pretty much the comp for Justin Fields for a couple of years there. Coming out of college, people thought that they were, similar with the great deep ball success, able to use the legs but not reliant on it, be able to make plays out of the pocket, and then being the magician in the pocket that they both are. So that it's eerily similar how his history with these quarterbacks and him assisting these quarterbacks, and now your situation with Justin Fields and style of quarterback he is, it does make you think that it is more likely they'll keep Justin Fields. And that's where I'm at. but I also don't think it's a hire that eliminates the possibility of them taking Caleb. Like
Right.
I don't think it's the best pairing if they were to take Caleb. Like I don't think Shane Waldron's like your guy. If you're taking Caleb Williams, I just don't see it that way. But it doesn't mean that they're not going to take him by any means. I just think at this
Right.
point, I'm with you that it leans towards them keeping Justin Fields.
Yeah, right. Could be wrong. It could totally go the other way. It could totally, they could still definitely select Caleb Williams or whoever at number one. But it's just given Waldron's experience with Geno Smith, with Russell Wilson, with Jared Goff, with Kirk Cousins, and then even with New England dating back as far as 2008. That's what it indicates to me, that the Bears are going to stick with Justin Fields and try to surround him. Maybe they trade out of number one and they try to get, a Marvin Harrison Jr. at number four, or even if they trade down to two or three, depends. So there's not a ton to be gleaned from this, but if I'm reading between the lines, if I'm reading the signs, as Silver Linings Playbook famously said in 2009, like, that's just what I'm getting from this. Could totally be wrong, but that's just I think it's a good hire. I mean, it's good to bring in. It's good. I mean, this is kind of typical Bears to go total opposite end of the spectrum from where you just came, where Luke Getsy, first time play caller, had only worked with one team, and now the Bears do this thing where they overcorrect completely, and so they go with the guy
this time.
Sure, agree. They go with a guy who's been around since 2008 in the league mostly.
Right.
There were a couple of years where he worked in college too, but with the Patriots and Bill Belichick, with Sean McVay and the Rams, with Pete Carroll and the Seahawks now in his last 3 years. So our last 4 years. So right. It's not a bad overcorrection. And I think that is the smart play to do. And there were guys that are starting to get hired. We're seeing coaches and coordinators start to get hired. So as this market was heating up, it's good that the Bears made their decision and made it happen so that they're not left scrambling. I think that was also a very good sign.
Yeah. And look, we'll break down and grade this higher a little bit in just a second, but there's something I want to bring up because I see a lot of people talking about the fact that Waldron was a top candidate this hiring season, right? Because he wasn't even supposed to be available. I mean, he wasn't going to be available at all until Pete Carroll decided to retire, get, move differently within the organization, right? And they made Waldron available. He was a top name. Teams like the Saints wanted him. I think there was a couple other teams that were inquiring for him, even for maybe head coaching positions, but he chose the Bears. So I'm seeing a lot of people say, okay, why would he choose the Bears? And there's a lot of people quick to make the assumption that, well, he only chose the Bears over other teams because they had the number one overall pick, and he's excited about the possibilities of working with Caleb Williams. And while that could be true, there's also truth to the idea that there's a lot that comes with working with the number one overall pick and the pressure that comes with working with a guy like Caleb Williams, who, has all these questions off the field and, all these different things. I wouldn't say all these questions, right? But there's some believe he's a diva or things like that, right? And who knows what Shane Waldron believes. But if you're comparing, okay, Justin Fields, we know who he is. We know what you're getting. What you're getting out of him when you work with him day one. No questions. You've seen him for 3 years. You know what he's capable of. You know what he's not great at. You know how to fix it. You know he's going to put his head down and work hard. You know he's a leader. You know all these things. When you're working with, whether it be Caleb Williams or Drake May, or if they were to draft a quarterback, it's an unknown venture if you're Shane Waldron, which to his, eyes could be exciting. Again, like to his eyes, that could be a blank canvas that he can draw all over, and he can mold Caleb Williams into whatever he wants to be. But I wouldn't rule out the possibility of him almost looking at working with Justin Fields as a more favorable situation for him because he has 3 years of tape to look at in the NFL of how he can make this a better player, the same way he was able to look at the years of tape with Geno Smith and all the faults that he had and make him a better player and turn the Seahawks into a playoff team year one that Geno Smith became the quarterback. So I just think people are too quick to look at his decision to choose the Bears and think, well, he only did that because the one thing the Bears have that other teams don't have, and that the other teams that Waldron were looking at, is the number one overall pick and is the prospect of getting a player like with the talent of Caleb Williams. So I don't think, again, it doesn't rule out that they take Caleb Williams. I just think there's a chance that he could have looked at the Bears situation and thought that it was more favorable to work with Justin Fields. And also, I don't think he knows that now, and I don't think they know that. But I think he probably has and 100% has to have that in his mind, like, hey, I'm going
I
here
think there's a
because
blueprint.
that's the possibility.
There's an idea of what they're going to do.
You think there's a blueprint?
I think there's an idea.
They shared that?
Maybe blueprint. Well, maybe now that he's been officially hired, maybe blueprint's the wrong word, but I think there's maybe at least like a foundation, let's call it, of like what they want to do. And maybe even maybe that is leaving the options open. I mean, Kevin, you talked about this a lot over the last, couple months, that regardless of what the Bears do, whether it's keep Fields or trade him and use the number 1 overall pick on, let's say, Caleb Williams, that it's a favorable situation because, all right, let's say you like Fields, if you're Shane Waldron, you're like, all right, yeah, I can work with this guy. You won 7 games when he missed a long stretch of the season, was injured, and you played Tyson Bagent for a handful of games. And also now you have an opportunity to add a Marvin Harrison Jr. or a Rome Odunze or whoever, or an offensive lineman or an edge rusher. So with Justin Fields, assuming health, and you add a couple more playmakers. Let's say you add a Tyler Boyd and a Rome Odunze. All right, now you have 3 legitimate receivers, a tight end you really like. All right, so now you have 4 legitimate receivers. All right, great. Maybe you add to the offensive line with that other pick. Okay, great. You get your other tackle. Maybe you kick Braxton Jones inside. I don't know, but whatever. Point being that if you keep Fields, okay, well, they can use that number 1 overall pick and this number 9 pick to add more talent to a team that won 7 games, who, by the way, missed their quarterback for 3-4 games. Okay. Right. Path to 10, 11 wins there. Great. Or it's this team has the number 1 overall pick and the chance to draft what is seen as, whether you agree or not, but what is generally seen as a generational quarterback prospect on a team, again, that won 7 games, and you can add a receiver at number 9, and you have all this money to play with, and blah, 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 blah. So either end of the spectrum, if you're Shane Waldron, and Ken, again, credit to you because you mentioned this a couple weeks ago, like, you have options where whether you keep Fields or bring in a rookie quarterback, there's a path to success for you to make your name or continue to make your name, because really, essentially, Shane Waldron is established. Let's not, get that confused. But, put another feather in your cap, let's call it, or add another notch to your checklist of like things you've accomplished in the NFL. So I agree with you. I think it seems to imply that Justin Fields will be returning, but it does not completely rule out the fact that he does not. Because, and maybe this is how we segue into this conversation, Mel Kiper put in his mock draft today that he wouldn't be surprised if the Bears got a 1st-round pick for Justin Fields.
Yeah.
And I think if teams are calling you, offering you a 1st-round pick for Justin Fields, you take that immediately. You take that offer. I think that Justin Fields can have success in this league. I think he could have success as the Bears quarterback. But if there's a team offering you a 1st-round pick this year for Justin Fields, you take that immediately, because that's just too much. Because then you have 3 1st-round picks, you use 1 on a quarterback, you reset the quarterback clock, and you're still able to add a lot of talent around that. And you still have a path. If Caleb Williams is able to reach 80% of his ceiling, you still have a path to 10 wins. Right or wrong, if somebody's offering you a 1st-round pick, you have to take that. That's a slam dunk offer. You have to. Like, that's just smart football. Like, that's just how smart organizations run. Like, if you're able to take advantage of somebody offering you a 1st-round pick for a guy who's going into his 4th year, who's a huge question mark, like, you have to take it. Like, we talk about malpractice on the show a lot. You have to take that. Otherwise, it's malpractice.
Yeah, and I think and I'm going to be honest, man. People are calling Mel Kiper crazy. I think that it depends on the team. The Falcons aren't offering you number 8 overall. I don't think that's happening. But the Steelers would 100% and should be asking for number 20. Like, if you're Brian Poles, you should set that price, because it is well known. I don't care what Twitter user X says to you. It's well known throughout the league that players and coaches alike respect and know Justin Fields is a very talented player. He was on the top 100 list last year, higher than Trevor Lawrence was. Mm-hmm. And in hindsight, that actually looks like a pretty good choice by the players and the coaches. But they know how good he is. The coaches know how good he is. The players know how good he is. That should be the asking price if you are to sell off Justin Fields. So I don't think that's outrageous at all. Again, it depends on the team. It has to be late 20s. There's going to be no team above round 15 that I think would trade a 1st-rounder for Fields. But Steelers,
maybe,
Saints, trying to think of other teams.
Saints gave Carr too much money. They're not moving on from him.
Saints, yeah. Okay. Chris Olave reunion. I've seen some Saints fans retweet my video from years ago at Ohio State when Chris Olave was talking about pairing up with Justin Fields. It's kind of funny, but I'm with you. Now, here's the thing that has just like thrown a wrench in this entire conversation. Not thrown a wrench for me because this is the way I've felt. And I've obviously, even myself, as big of a supporter of Justin Fields as I have been, and have believed that keeping him has been the best option, am undoubtedly excited about the possibility of Caleb Williams. You have to be. You have to be excited about that prospect. There's a chance that that could be a very, very good player. While I believe there's question marks, you can't rule out the fact that he could be great. And there's a lot of exciting things when you go back and you watch the tape and you see who he is as a player. It's been really interesting for me watching the NFL playoffs, Jake, and seeing what's unfolded, because you kind of have a mix in both conferences of teams going both ways of what the Bears could do, right? You have the Chiefs and Patrick Mahomes, and you have a quarterback who's carried this team year after year after year, even with a limited supporting cast, which is a big knock against those who are saying, well, Justin Fields needs this player and this player and this offensive line. And there's people that say, oh, well, Justin Fields should be able to get by with what they've got because Patrick Mahomes can do that and all these different things, right? So you have the Chiefs and you have the Bills with Josh Allen, who's just incredible. And then on the other side, you have the Lions with Jared Goff, who's playing really well, but no one would argue he's a top 5 quarterback in the NFL. No one would argue that he carries that team. No one would argue that he's the sole reason that team is in the NFC Championship. That's just a great offense with a great offensive line that comes together. And then the team that they played in the divisional round, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, with the resurgence of Baker Mayfield and staying the course and putting faith in a player to resurge and develop their career, is the exact case for Justin Fields. And then the 49ers, with a great team around him and spend all this capital on building around a team and a quarterback who's really not valuable at all, but he gets the job done because his team is incredible. I mean, I'm sorry. It's just what it is. I mean, Brock Purdy is just not a valuable player. I mean, he's valuable, but like that team's better with Justin Fields. That team's better with a majority of other quarterbacks in the NFL, I think. And yes, it's only his second year, but that's part of why I think they're better, is because he's still a second-year player. And he's a rookie, or he's not a rookie. He's
a good, not great player.
He's a good, not great player. But the point is, you kind of get torn because you see these teams have success in the NFL, and the Bears have both options. Like, you could go the Lions route, and you could go the Chiefs route. I don't know. Like, the Chiefs route's a little riskier because while you could get Patrick Mahomes, the odds of you getting Patrick Mahomes are probably 1 in 100. They just are, because Patrick Mahomes himself is a 1 in a million player, right? Like, you can't just expect that if you take Caleb Williams, you're going to be the Chiefs. You can't expect that, because odds are it's not going to happen. Well, it's not, Jake. It's not that it's not going to fix everything. Statistically, odds are that's not what you're getting out of Caleb Williams. Patrick Mahomes is going to go down as the best player to ever play football. It's going to happen. In 10 years, you'll have that conversation without a doubt, with no disrespect to Tom Brady. So you're kind of torn after watching these NFL playoffs on which way the Bears should go. But
what that shows you is that you as an organization have to nail everything else. Waldron has to be the guy. Whoever you hire as defensive coordinator has to be the guy. Or if Eberflus is going to keep calling plays on defense, then he has to continue to grow and evolve and be a good head coach. Whoever else you draft at 9, whether that's, Fashanu or Latu or one of these other edge rushers or a Dunze, you have to nail it. Whoever you draft in the middle rounds, and credit to Ryan Poles, he's had a good track record, but you have to continue to nail this. Well, you better hope, regardless of if you keep Fields or you go with Caleb Williams, you better hope Waldron's it. You better hope, because if you get another Getsy, it's full rebuild time again, and everybody's getting traded, and everybody's walking out that door, and then we're doing this for another 5 years, and we're just miserable.
Yes.
So, to your point, like the Lions, Dan Campbell is he's a good coach, a great leader. He nailed his coordinator hirings. And I mean, their defense is just fine, but the offense, Johnson, it nailed it. Got the best out of Jared Goff. The Niners continually nail it with everything that they do, because they have a top 2 head coach in the league. So to your point, yes, Caleb Williams doesn't automatically fix everything. Maybe Shane Waldron doesn't automatically unlock Justin Fields, but you got to continue to nail everything else. It's not a 1-to-1 correlation. Does it help? Sure, maybe Caleb Williams is great and he does help things. Doesn't magically fix everything. Like you said, you're not getting Patrick Mahomes, probably not getting Patrick Mahomes, but like even if you do, you still got issues. You got to nail everything else. So, I mean, let's be really clear. Caleb Williams is seen as a generational prospect. If he's 75% of Patrick Mahomes, you have a very, very good quarterback on your hands. You have a great player on your hands. So the point being, you got to continue to nail everything else. You've done all right so far. You've done okay. And most of it has just been players who have been bailing you out here. But whoever else you hire, got to nail it. That's it. Because at the end of the day, that's what all of these teams do. Kyle Shanahan's a genius, but also look at the guys he's hired. Look at the players he's brought in. Okay, the Lions, you want to use that example? Yeah, Dan Campbell nailed his offensive coordinator hire. He's able to rally his guys at all times. Like
Ben Johnson's the best coach on that staff. Like he just is. He's the best.
I mean, I think Dan Campbell's a very good coach.
No, I agree.
Just because of his leading capabilities.
Right.
But also was smart enough and worked with his general manager to identify somebody who is an awesome offensive coordinator, is going to be a head coach next year. Like, you got to have that.
I've often said, this is just a good case study with the Lions here. I've often said, as the Chicago Bears, we should be in no situation to ever compare ourselves to the Lions, but that's just, I mean, they're just the better organization, they're a better team right now. At this moment in 2024, that's just fact. So you can compare yourselves to them and not feel shameful about it. And when I'm watching that game against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Mike Tirico, or I don't know, was that game? Yeah, that game was on NBC.
Yeah.
Who's the sideline reporter? Is it Michelle Tafoya? I forget who it is.
Yes.
It was either her or Tirico, whoever it is. And they had shown Sheila Hamp, who's the CEO and president of the Detroit Lions, in her box. And they talked about last year when the Lions were 1-6, right? And they ended up 8-9, I believe, or maybe 9-8 and just missed the playoffs after they beat Green Bay.
8-9.
They had a lot of reasons to fire the head coach. They had a lot of reasons to fire Dan Campbell after going 1-6. The team wasn't coming together. It didn't look like they were playing hard, all these different things, right? Like, it seemed like, okay, he might have been the rah-rah guy that didn't work out, right? The biting of the kneecaps and all of it was weird, and people didn't buy in. They do better the second half of the season. They end up at the end of the year a little momentum, although they were under 500. And you're looking at, so Sheila Hamp goes, we had every reason in the world to blow it up and do what we do as the Detroit Lions and just restart and start over again. But we put faith in our head coach. We put faith in our quarterback, who at the time was nothing special. Like, there were questions about Jared Goff as the future of the Detroit Lions quarterback.
He was coming back, though.
You knew he was coming. Well, you knew he was coming back, but you weren't sure that he was
the guy.
If he was the guy to lead you to an NFC championship,
sure,
right? You were hesitant. People would have, I'm sure Lions fans entertained trade options or put like drafting up. Like, I'm sure it happened. And Sheila Hamp, the new CEO, was like, we're not going to do the Lions way anymore. We're going to stick with we're going to put full faith in this team the way it is constructed. With this head coach and this quarterback, we're going to bring in Sam Laporta. We're going to I don't give a fuck if you think we reached on Jahmyr Gibbs. We're going to take him and he's going to be a playmaker for us, right? And they took him in the top 10 or the top 15. They built around him. They spent a decent amount of money in free agency. And watching and hearing about that, it just made it was just eye-opening for me for some reason. Because when you talk about the Bears way, what's the Bears way? It's give up. It's fail to allocate resources to a team that might be close, although you may not recognize it. Draft the quarterback, fire the guy, go through this over and over again, and just play roulette with it like you have for the past 80 years. And if the Detroit Lions, under this format, can make it to the NFC Championship, why can't you? So, although this may not be advocating for the Bears to do that, all I'm saying is if you are upset, if the Bears choose to take that route, you are a fool, because there is proof that can work, and there's proof that may be the right way. And that's why I've sort of become I've warmed up to the idea of Matt Eberflus staying around. Initially, I still think I still think they should have done due diligence on Jim Harbaugh. I still think that they should have at least made the phone call to Vrabel or Harbaugh or, I don't know about Belichick, whatever it may be, right? But I cannot deny and I cannot knock them if their philosophy was similar to Sheila Hampson Detroit, saying, look, we won't give up on a guy who clearly the players like, who clearly the players have now bought into, which is a stark contrast from what it was at the beginning of the year and last year. And now let's rally around this guy. Let's hire a coordinator who can be tactically smart on both sides of the ball so your head coach can be your culture and rah-rah guy that people buy into. And the coordinators are the ones making the smart football decisions. And let's go win some fucking football games and get to the NFC Championship. And if that's truly their blueprint, Jake, and they want to do that, say they want to do that next year, you're not doing that with Caleb Williams. It's just not happening. CJ Stroud just had one of the best seasons a rookie could ever have, and they got knocked out in the divisional round. It wasn't even close. So,
the Ravens might also be like an all-time team.
I don't know about an all-time team.
I mean, they have the guy who's going to win his second
weekend.
MVP.
They're going to lose this weekend, but that's a different conversation for a different day. But nonetheless, I just, if that's their formula, then they're keeping everybody around. And who knows if that is, but I think it's an interesting case study. The Lions are a really interesting case study for what the Bears could do if they chose to keep Justin Fields. And I'm not saying they will, but it's just interesting to look at. And respect to them. I fuck with the Lions right now. They're balling.
Yeah, I mean, anytime, that's what happens when teams in this position. I mean, you shouldn't only be looking at the Lions. The Bears should be looking at all four teams that are alive in championship weekend because that's where you want to be. So it shouldn't just be a Lions thing. It should be a 49ers thing, a Chiefs thing, a Ravens thing, because you want to take something from all of those teams because you want to be in their position. So, yeah, I get what you're saying.
Real quick, because I'll ask you this. I think there's flawed logic. I just don't understand. You cannot compare anyone to the Chiefs. You just can't.
Right.
Because I don't care what happens, Jake. Caleb Williams will not be Patrick Mahomes. He will not. It's just not going to guys, Patrick Mahomes is the best quarterback we've ever seen play the game of football. The odds of Caleb Williams being that are 1 in 1,000, 1 in 2,000. Like, it's just not going to happen. And maybe there's a slim chance that it does. But to make the comparison that, hey, let's be the Chiefs, you're not going to be the Chiefs. It doesn't happen. Teams aren't the Chiefs because they don't have Patrick Mahomes. You're not getting Patrick Mahomes and Caleb Williams, especially not in the first couple of years, most likely. So,
well, the thing is also, though, the Chiefs have a Hall of Fame head coach, a Hall of Fame tight end, probably the greatest tight end of all time as well. They have a Hall of Fame defensive tackle.
Exactly.
Exactly. It worked out for them. They got lucky.
They got pretty damn lucky, and you don't have a Hall of Fame coach.
You don't.
Eberflus could get you to the NFC Championship. He's not a Hall of Fame coach.
Correct.
We know that. So, end of story. Let's move on real quick. I know you got to head out of here soon. I got some things on Shane Waldron. Or what were you going to say before I rudely interrupted you about that question?
I don't think I was going to say anything. So,
Shane Waldron. Let's do a little review of Shane Waldron here and what he brings to the table. Well, let me ask you this. When you first saw that pop up, 5 a.m. higher, Ryan Poles is doing the dirty work at 4 a.m. What was like the instant reaction? Was it a meh? Was it a, okay, let's go? Was it a letdown? Instant reaction.
It was fine. I mean, like, I'm not unhappy with it. I think that there are good things that were taken. I think that there's good things from his history that make sense, and the hire makes sense. I mean, to me, it was like, all right, fine. And then I read a little bit more. I was like, okay, like, I'm on board. Like, this makes sense. So I'm not fully tilted either way. I think it's a strong hire, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah. So I'm with you. Initially, I was like uninspiring. I wasn't out on it, but I was like, meh, like that, right? Sure. And I've kind of over the past 24 hours have had to look things up here and try to convince myself why it was an inspiring hire. And I don't think I've gotten to that point. I don't think it's inspiring, but I see the path and I understand the reasons why they hired him. And here's the good in Shane Waldron here from a play calling statistical standpoint. Last year, 7th in the NFL, the Seattle Seahawks were in pre-snap motion. And why this is significant is because, you can talk for hours about why pre-snap motion is great and how it beats man-to-man and why it's awesome. It's fun to watch. I'll read you the top 5 teams in pre-snap motion. You tell me what they all have in common. Number 1, the Miami Dolphins, 68%. Number 2, the Los Angeles Rams, 44%. Number 3, the San Francisco 49ers, 37%. Number 4, the Green Bay Packers, 36%. Number 5, the Detroit Lions, 28%. Number 6, the Baltimore Ravens, 28%. And then the Seattle Seahawks at 26% at 7. Those 6 teams above them, all the best offenses in the NFL, all playoff teams. Is there a correlation? Yes. Run more pre-snap motion. It's not hard. Run pre-snap motion, you get into the playoffs. Correlation equals causation. This is how this works. And we all know this. I think that is a significant aspect. And now it's funny because the Bears came in at 12th in pre-snap motion at 21%. It didn't feel like a lot of the pre-snap motion the Bears did was creative, though. It was really basic stuff. Like, watch the Dolphins. Watch what they do with Tyreek Hill. He's going back towards the quarterback, then back behind the running back, then all around the fucking place, right? Like, do that with Tyler Scott. Do that with DJ Moore, right? If you bring in Marvin Harrison Jr. Do these different things. Shane Waldron's actually pretty creative with his pre-snap motion, with his, personnel groupings. I wouldn't say he gets too cute from the things that I've seen and things I've read and things that I've watched, the way Matt Nagy does, but he's also not boring the way that Luke Getsy kind of was. And I think this is the most interesting thing. The Seahawks were second in the NFL in resetting drives on first down. So what that means is they were second in the NFL in getting first downs on first down. And why I think that's so important is because it felt so often the Bears were trying to take this methodological approach every time they got a first down of, hey, we have 3 downs every drive. Why don't we just run the halfback dive with Herbert for 3 yards? And if we do that again on second down, then we're in a pretty favorable 3rd and 4. And maybe we get to 4th and 1 and we can run a play we like on 4th and 1. Instead of, hey, let's go take the shot on first down because the worst thing that could happen is an incompletion and it's 2nd and 10. And now you got 2 more downs to get 10 yards. So second in the NFL and resetting drives on first down is really, really critical. Now, here's the bad about Shane Waldron, things that concern me. Not a great utilization of unbelievable playmakers in that Seahawks offense last year. DK Metcalf had, I believe, something close to a career low in targets, was averaging somewhere near like 6 to 7 targets per game per player as good and unstoppable as him. Jackson Smith and Jigba, we all know how good he could be. Only had 630 yards and 4 touchdowns. I guess it's not that bad, 63 receptions for a rookie. But he was supposed to have a potential rookie of the year type season. Tyler Lockett's aging. I don't really want to compare his stats. But it felt like, and the sentiment from a lot of Seattle fans is Shane Waldron wasn't getting the ball to his best playmakers consistently and wasn't utilizing some of the best, wide receivers in the NFL in DK Metcalf and in a budding star in Jackson Smith and Jigba. So there's people concerned about, hey, if you bring in Marvin Harrison Jr., or if you, whether it is just DJ Moore and Rome Odunze, that he won't get the ball to those guys consistently. So that's just an interesting to look at because that Seahawks offense last year was middle of the road from a yards per game and a points per game basis, which is they're actually really close to where the Bears are. And the Seahawks had Kenneth Walker, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, like really good players on offense. And now maybe Geno Smith isn't as good as Justin Fields or Caleb Williams or whoever the Bears go at quarterback. That's probably going to be the truth. But that's just one of the knocks that I've seen about Shane Waldron. So knowing now what you know about those there, the pre-snap motion, the pros and the cons, do you feel any different? Do those things excite you? Do those things make you nervous at all?
Not nervous. Again, I'm not fully tilted either way. I think that, again, it just like it goes hand in hand with his full evaluation as a coach, as a person. So I think that it's still a mostly positive hire. I'm still like, I'll give it a B. Like, I'm not fully like, yeah, slam dunk or, oh God, you fucked it up. Like, I think that there's arguments for each. And I think that, I think that's wait and see. Like we'll never be able to know until we actually see the team on the field. You gotta unmute yourself, King.
You're right. That's just a great phrase there. We will never know until we see it on the field. That is, I mean, why even do the podcast? Right? I mean, why even have?
I mean, I just think it's a good hire. I mean, but we'll never know. Like, we'll never be able to definitively say for 7 months, 8 months.
Right. Well, actually, I would actually counter that. I don't think you'll know for a couple years.
Sure.
I mean, we know
won't
this,
be able
right?
to at least first start to know.
Dude, week 8 of 2022, we were like, Luke Getsy's getting a head coaching job. He like it's happening, right?
Fair.
You
Sure.
will not know for a couple years.
Yeah.
Offensive coordinators were. And how about
We won't
this
have an idea until for 8 to 7 to 8 months.
This is the craziest thing I've ever heard in my life. Every team in the NFL has switched offensive coordinators since the 2022 offseason.
Wow.
That cannot be possible.
There's no way.
I swear, I find who tweeted this.
I mean, I believe it, but I mean, I get
Eagles, Chiefs. You know,
yeah.
the Lions got Ben Johnson at the start of 2022.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. Yeah, here it is from Desana Sports on Twitter. Every team in the NFL has changed their OC since the 2022 offseason. Brian Callahan of the Bengals was the last one standing until he was hired by the Titans today. Or yesterday.
Wow.
Incredible.
Yeah, interesting.
So for those who are like, well, you know, what if Shane Waldron gets hired as a head coach? Like, it probably will happen. Like, or he'll get fired. Like, they're gonna change
one of two outcomes. Yeah.
The Super Bowl's coming up. NFC Championship. We probably won't record unless anything significant happens until, you know,
some kind of trade.
Who knows, right? We'll see. So, Jake, let's give some Super Bowl picks here for the people. NFC Championship, AFC Championship. Who you think wins the Super Bowl? What do you got?
I'm gonna go chalk. I think it's gonna be Ravens, Niners. I like the Lions. Great story. I think they're gonna get curb stomped.
Curb stomped?
Yeah.
Curb stomped. Dude, the Niners almost lost to Green Bay. And
Jordan Love might be really good.
Okay, let's relax.
Jordan Love might be really good.
I don't know if he's really good, but I don't think they're curb stomping the Lions. You're that guy who saw the Super Bowl logo be purple and red and was like, yeah, that's the NFL
that's
script.
something I would do. Yeah,
it is.
The listeners and viewers of this show know that that's something I would do for sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
I mean,
don't project onto me. Talking about yourself. You're projecting right now.
I'm projecting. I think the NFL knew what they were doing with that opening season game. This is Super Bowl preview. I think it's Chiefs-Lions. I think it's Chiefs-Lions. There's something about the Lions. Yeah, which is, I mean, why would I ever, agree with you on anything? That's not what this show is. That's not what this show is about.
Sure, I mean, sure.
It's just, we can't do that here.
Mm-hmm.
The Lions they have that Cinderella story magic, right? They just do. I mean, watching these games, and I know they have to go to Santa Clara for this one and not play at home with that raucous crowd, but they got something special. Their offense is unstoppable. I think that game is going to be like 42-40, like the Lions might pull it out at the end. I'm actually picking the Lions to get in. And dude, just stop betting against the Chiefs. Just stop doing it. Just don't do it. Everyone did it against Buffalo. Is the only one on my show on Saturday on BetQL who said take the Chiefs. If you can get Patrick Mahomes at plus money, if you're a betting man, take Patrick Mahomes on plus money with Andy Reid. They find a way. They will do it. They're going to beat the Ravens. I'm sorry, Lamar. Taylor Swift Super Bowl. They can't get over it. It's going to be phenomenal. Chiefs Lions, great uniform matchup that will be in Vegas. It's going to happen. So I'll see you on Chiefs win the Super Bowl. Yep. I'm sorry. I don't want to be that guy who picks the Chiefs to win it all, but like,
I mean, you're not alone. Myself. It makes sense.
10 years from now, you'll look back and be like, fuck, I shouldn't have doubted that Patrick Mahomes guy. I mean, you already should know that, right? What did you say about Tom Brady for 20 years?
That's fair. It's a good point. That is a good point. All right. Well, we will see you guys whenever something happens, whether that be tomorrow or next week or in a month. There's going to be something that happens, some kind of trade, whether it's Fields or the number 1 overall pick. I think we can all agree on that. So we'll let you know when that happens. We'll be here. Until then, thanks for listening. Thanks for viewing. You guys are the best as always. For myself, for Kevin, as I burp, nice. This has been Bears Nation Podcast. Until next time, as always, bear down.
Bear down.